Okay, still I'm getting, yeah, now. Fine. So first we are going to discuss Dataview in theoretical way, since like many people are using Dataview, but they are not so like what all components Dataview has. Like they have used limited component, and like during discussion with many people, I realized like they are not familiar with each component of Dataview. So first I decided to take it in theoretical way, so at least you will come to know what all components are there in Dataview, and then slowly we will move on practical side. Okay, so yeah, first day there will be small theoretical part, and then from second day onward it will be completely like real time, or you can say practical only. Okay, so hope everyone know like basic of Dataview, like it's a scripting language, or you can say programming language to do transformation in Mulesoft. Okay, so we have different version of Dataview. Okay, like starting from 1.0 to 2.0, and different Mule versions support different version of Dataview. For example, Mule till Mule 3 it supports Dataview 1, and from Mule 4 it supports Dataview 2. Okay, so whenever you are writing Dataview, then I'm not sure like you have observed or not, we used to write version of Dataview. Okay, so that version which Mule support which version, you can get list here. Okay, now Dataview we can write in two way. One is graphical mapping, and another one we can write script. We can write a script directly. If you are writing in graphical way, then automatically it will create a script for you. So if you want to take small highlight of this, so you can see this is graphical way, and I have added one mapping here. If I add another field here, so automatically it will add a script for me. Okay, so this is the first way, graphical way. Another way, you can directly write this script. So this is second way of writing Dataview. Okay, so there are two ways. One is graphical, another one is script way. Now people will say like which one is more easier? Definitely graphical is more easier, but in graphical you have to do lots of modification. Okay, so very rarely I have seen people are using graphical map, like graphical way of doing Dataview. Mostly we do this programming, like we do write our Dataview code. And I have seen like many people are asking like in Mulesoft how much like percentage you have to. Yes, yes. Okay, is it very small or? Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, like many people asking me like in Mulesoft how much coding are there and how much percentage of like it's a tool based. So wherever you are coming on coding part, then mostly we write Dataview code only. Apart of that, sometime you need to write Java code. Maybe like in a 1 year you need to write one Java code. That can also be possible. But Dataview code you have to write very frequently. On coding part, like I can say 80% time you will write Dataview code. Apart of that, you can do everything tool based, drag and drop and done. But Dataview you must need to understand how to write Dataview code. So you have to understand everything, what all components are there in Dataview, and how to like use that component, what is the like meaning of that each component, for which region we should use which component, everything we are going to discuss. Okay, and in Dataview another thing we have to be focused, like Dataview has almost like 500 plus predefined functions. Okay, in real time if you will come, then maximum we use 50 to 100 function very frequently, that you must need to know. Apart of that, what other function we have, at least you should have idea this particular functionality exists in Dataview, so you can reuse that function wherever you require. If you don't have idea of that function, you may start writing your own logic to achieve that particular functionality. That will take lots of time. Okay, in Mulesoft almost for each functionality they have predefined functions similar to Java or other programming language. For example, if you want to do substring, if you want to concat string, if you want to like convert array to JSON, JSON to array, for everything we have functions here. If you will not use that predefined function, if you will write your own function, then it will be very hectic or time consuming task. Okay, so here our main objective is to go with each function. We will do deep dive, we will show you some practical example, everything we have planned. Okay, so version part I already mentioned. Next, okay, while doing Dataview practice, this particular website is very useful. Dataview dwlang.fun. I hope most of you know about this particular website, dwlang.fun. This website we use very commonly whenever we are working on project, also like whenever we want to do some POC activity on like Dataview. Okay, this particular functionality is working or not, or for learning purpose also this particular website is very useful. Okay, I have shared this link, and you will get this PPT also. So either you can go to this particular link, or simply you can go on browser and you can type dwlang.fun. okay, this is official website for this dwlang.fun, and this we use generally for like a learning purpose. Okay, in real time you have to write transform message, you have to write set payload, you have to write set variable, but for learning purpose this particular platform is very good. Okay, you don't need to run, or you don't need to run your application every time. Here you can put some input, you can write your Dataview script, and you will get output. Very soon we are going to do lots of practice on this particular platform, but yeah, at this moment this is very high level. So here you can see we have like 5-6 component here, what we use very frequently in the Dataview playground. So first is input part. Here we define our input, here we define our Dataview script, here you will get output, and this part will be like you can explore folder file, you can log, you can see log and other thing, all those things you will get here. But mostly 1, 2, 3 section will be very commonly used. Okay, okay, fine. Mani, now you don't mute everyone, so whenever required I will go and I will mute. If you will mute, then I think I will also get muted. Okay, fine. So here as I mentioned, like this particular playground we are going to use. So here you can see we have one sample payload, and I have written a script to get entire payload, and you can see entire. No, someone muting. So sorry. Okay, so I will think how we can remove access from everyone to muted. Okay, fine. Yeah, so here you can see like we have this payload section where we have input payload, and then we have here Dataview script, so we can write Dataview script here, and then on right hand side you will get output. Okay, so this is very good platform to learn Dataview, to do practice. Okay, so definitely we are going to, in our session also many places we are going to use this platform. Okay, so coming to like Dataview, whenever we are writing Dataview, so we have two way of writing Dataview, or you can say two types. Okay, one is standalone Dataview, another one is inline Dataview. Okay, so many people using this standalone and inline, but they are unable to differentiate what exactly this is. So I thought to cover in this like this two particular thing also in detail. So in case of standalone, whenever you are writing your Dataview script here, okay, so whenever you are writing your Dataview script here, then this particular way of writing is standalone one. So here also you can see when I am writing this particular Dataview script here, this one is a standalone one. Another way we have inline one, let's say I have one set payload. Okay, here I uncheck this fx function, and then you can write your inline Dataview here. So for that, syntax will be hash, then this bracket, and then you can write your Dataview code here. Okay, this particular way is known as inline way. We are writing inline, like this particular Dataview we are writing inside a string. You can use your Dataview script in any string value, but before that you need to add this particular symbol hash and then bigger bracket. Okay, this particular way is known as inline way, and what we are writing here, this particular script, this one is known as standalone one. Okay, okay, okay. So yes, yeah, so we can move on. Yes, yeah. So here you can see, like, we have this particular checkbox. Once you will select this and you have your Dataview code inside your src main resource, you can take your Dataview code here, and you can see here, like, they have written some file name also, file name.dwl. So you can include any dw file what is externalized. You have like written Dataview script, and you can use or reuse or at multiple places. Okay, hope everyone clear on this part. Yeah, if required I will do small correction here. Yeah. Now structure of Dataview, this one is very much important. Okay, so if you go in Dataview, then we have two part in Dataview. One is header part, another one is body. Okay, so inside header part we have, look, okay, let me show you first here. So here you can see we have 3 hyphen. On top of this, whatever you can see, these all are headers. Okay, and this particular part below this hyphen we have body. Okay, so in header part generally we define metadata. Okay, in metadata we can have Dataview version, output type, input type, then we can define variable, we can define function, and inside body we write our Dataview script to generate our output payload. Okay, so here we have two sections, header and body. Okay, in header what all option we have, or what all things we can define. So first, Dataview version. So at the very beginning I told, like, we have two versions of Dataview, one and Dataview 1 and Dataview 2. So till Mule 3 we were supporting Dataview 1, but from Mule 4 we are supporting Dataview 2. Okay, so that is Dataview version. And if someone will say it's a mandatory or optional, even if we will remove this from here, it will not create any impact in our output. Okay, so this particular Dataview version is optional, and by default it will take Dataview 2.0. Okay, so if you go here also, so here you can remove this particular version. You can see still we are getting this particular output. So this particular Dataview version is optional, but by default it will take 2.0. Okay, if you want to define 1.0, then you must need to write this. Okay, So this particular version is optional field. By default it will be 2.0, and if you want to define 1.0 you have to define it. Next, input type and sources. Okay, so whenever we like write Dataview code, so we can define what is the input type of our request payload, or you can say type of our request payload. So similar to this output, you can define input type also. Okay, here you can define input type, and syntax will be like this. Oh, sorry. Okay, so after this we have output type. So it will define the output structure of your Dataview. It can be like there can be multiple format for input and output type. So it can be application JSON, it can be application CSV, it can be text file, it can be like XML payload. So we have multiple format of message which is supported by Dataview. So we can define any kind of input and output type which Dataview supports. Okay, then namespace. Okay, many time we need to define namespace also. Generally whenever we deal with XML payload, at that time we need to define this namespace. Okay, and for that we will have syntax. Okay, this syntax looks it should be only ns, it should not be like this. So in namespace syntax will be only ns, and then namespace name, and then you will define namespace URL. Okay, generally we use this namespace to avoid any kind of conflicts. Like whenever you are writing any XML payload, so there can be multiple tags with same name. Okay, then how you will like avoid the conflict of using that particular element. Okay, so in that case we need to define namespace. So namespace, like it's very common term, we define this in Java also. Okay, and in other programming language also. So same way here, to avoid any kind of conflict, we define namespace, and we can assign that namespace to different element of our request and response payload. Okay, then next we have constant, that can be referenced to the body, and then function. So constant means variable. So here syntax will be, you need to write var keyword, then variable name, and then you need to provide value. Okay, and then next function. So to define function, it's very similar to other programming language. Like first you need to use this fun keyword, then function name, then input parameter, what you are passing inside input. Okay, for example, this input object contains one object which contain two value, name and place. Okay, here I hard coded this value, but many times you may need to pass some input parameter whenever you are calling any function. So you can pass that input parameter and you can define in place of this object. And here you okay. So function, actually, like why we use function, first let me explain this. So whenever you want to do same functionality in your Dataview again and again, okay, if you will write that same line of script or same line of Dataview code again and again, your Dataview will be very lengthy. So what we do to avoid those kind of thing, we write function in your header part, and then you can call that function anywhere throughout your Dataview script. Okay, so you can avoid redundancy in your Dataview, and you can make your code very simple and easy to maintain. Now what will be syntax of this? So first you need to write fun keyword. Okay, and then you need to write function name. This to user is function name, and then this is input parameter. Whenever you are calling any function, then you have to provide some, it's not mandatory, but sometimes you have to provide input parameter. In that case you will provide input parameter name here. Okay, and whenever you will call this function, okay, then you whatever input you will pass, that input will be captured inside this input parameter. Okay, next after this you can see this particular, please ask your doubt. Yes, whatever doubts and all you have now, I will suggest like first ask in this chat section. So Abhishek, Mani and many experts are there, they will answer you. And if still like it's not answered, then yeah, I will give you time to ask. Okay, yeah, that I think if we will follow this, then our session will be more interactive. Otherwise it will be keep rotating on same place. Yeah, fine. So as I mentioned, like inside function we have to define what exactly what logic we want to achieve. So here this particular function is very simple. It's assigning name and place. So it's creating one JSON object which contain name and place. So soon we are going to see through example also. It's not like we are just going through theoretical. So we will go on Dataview playground and we will see. Okay, so let me take, okay, first let me take this only, or maybe I can create directly. Okay, so till this point we have gone through theoretical part. Now let's go with some practical part also, and then we will move. So what I will do here, I will remove this payload with my another payload what I have created today for this learning session. Okay, I just want a small input from everyone. Is there anyone who don't know JSON? I want quick response. I will not wait for much time. And Abhishek, you can tell me if you are getting any response as a they don't know. Yes. Incoming request. Okay, that I think it's not in my hand. Yeah, that part I'm not sure that is in my hand or not, but yeah, I will explore this part from next session onward. We will try to figure out some solution, and yeah, definitely everyone will have to follow time. Otherwise, if they will not follow time, we will not allow them. Yeah. Okay, fine. So here you can see this is our sample payload and this is JSON payload. Okay, whenever we want to write any JSON payload and whenever we want to create any JSON object, then syntax will be you have to write this curly brace. Okay, so let me explain one JSON payload and then we will go ahead. So this is the syntax to define any JSON object. So you have to write everything inside this curly bracket. Inside this you can see we have multiple elements like response data. Again, response data you can see it's enclosed by one this third bracket, that bigger bracket. Okay, that's mean this response data is array. Okay, if something is enclosed by this bracket, that means that JSON element is an array, and inside this array we have again curly braces. Curly braces means that is JSON payload. So this array contain one JSON payload. So whenever array comes, it can contain one element, it can contain 0 element, or it can contain n number of elements. Okay, for example, this we have only one element, one JSON object here inside. If we are defining this as an array, so we can define it multiple times also. Since it's array, so we can define this like this. We can define like this also. Okay, so this particular bracket denotes this particular element is array. Now inside this array, this one is JSON payload. Okay, for now I am removing some second JSON payload to make it a bit simple. So this object contain type, ID, attributes. Again you can see these attributes contain this JSON payload. Okay, this type, ID and attribute is child element of response data, and again title and body is child element of these attributes. Okay, now this attribute and this relation, okay, sorry, type, ID, attribute and relationship, these four are child element of this response data. Okay, now attribute and relationship has their own child element. So attribute has their title and body, these two are child element of this attribute. And if you see, title is type of JSON, sorry, it's a type of string, it contains some string payload, and this relationship has one child element, that is author, which again has one child element, that is data, and data has two child element, id and type. Okay, so you can see there is like a very multiple hierarchy here. Let me beautify this, then it will be more clear for everyone. So there are many online tools where you can beautify your JSON payload or your XML payload. Okay, just you need to paste it here, and so it will give you proper hierarchy, and then it will be easy for you to understand. So this relationship is a JSON object which contain author as a child element, which is again JSON payload. Okay, since it's enclosed by curly braces. Then author has child element, which is again an object, since it's enclosed by curly braces. And data has two child element, id and type, both of type string. If you will remove this double inverted comma, then id will be integer and type will be string. Okay, so there are multiple data types which is supported by our JSON elements. So till this point, I hope everyone clear what we discuss. So yeah, response data. Now this particular main JSON object has two child element, response data and includes. Now include is again of type of array, which contain repeating element, that is JSON object. Okay, which contain again multiple child element, type, id, and then details. So details will have here like three child element, name, age and gender. So this is structure of JSON payload. I hope everyone clear with this. And as I mentioned, like let's start with one by one. Like we are discussing about header first. So here first thing, Dataview version, that DW 2.0, that this is the particular syntax to write Dataview version. If someone is using Mule 3, then you will able to see in your Dataview, you will see this data DW is 1.0. Okay, now next, what all things are there header? Namespace we will cover later on, means we will cover now only, but next part. So input, you need to define input here. So here you can define data type of your input payload. Okay, so what I defined as a application JSON. Okay, same way you can define data type of output payload. Okay, so if you see here, if I remove this particular data type, then there are certain method or way by which your Dataview will decide what should be output type. If you are not defining your output type, so there are certain rule, based on that it will define what is the output type of your like response payload. So you can see by default it's coming text. Okay, but if I want to enforce it to make it JSON, then I will define my data type, output application JSON. So now you can see this is getting converted in JSON format. So Dataview version, this one is optional. Then input, output, both are optional. Okay. Next we have variable. Okay. So here we can, no, you can't ask right now. If you have any query, I will give you time, then you will ask. Okay, I don't want to interrupt everyone. Yeah. If you have anything very urgent, you can ask in chat. So we have many experts here, Abhishek, Mani and other people, they are here to support. You can ask your query, they will help you definitely in chat. If you think that is very urgent, then you can ask, and definitely they will help. They are here to coordinate. And after this, after completing this particular topic, I will give you time to ask your query. Okay. Yeah. Whatever query you have in between this session, when I'm not allowing you to ask, just ask your doubt in chat, and I will give you time. Then you can ask directly. You can unmute yourself and you can ask. And there are many experts here who are here to just coordinate this event, and they will keep answering your query, whatever you have. Next, variable name. So okay, next, how to define variable. So syntax will be where keyword. So this is where, whatever you can see, this is keyword. Okay, and then you need to write variable name, like I'm using variable name as a test where, then equals to, and then you need to define value. Okay, so for example, I want to define something like string value. Okay, till this point you can't see here, so let me show you how to see. So this variable just now I created, and if you want to see what is the value of this variable, or you want to use that variable inside your so these two variable I created. As I mentioned, syntax will be where keyword, then variable name, and then value. Okay, so now I want to use these two variable inside my Dataview script. So let's say I want to create one JSON payload which will contain two element, name and age. Okay, so name I want to define, like I want to take value from variable, so I will take name where. So you can see here, whatever variable I defined here, it's taking this name key, is taking that value. Okay, and like if everyone know in Mulesoft, whenever we want to use variable, then we write where's keyword, but that is for using Mulesoft component. Like when we are writing something, whenever you want to utilize variable created inside your flow, but inside Dataview, whatever variable you are creating, you don't need to add anything before variable name. You just put your variable name and you will able to get value of that variable. Okay, this is the difference between what variable we define inside flow and what variable we define inside Dataview. Okay. So at my initial level, like I used to type here where's dot something. Okay, that will not work here. Here you just need to use variable name, that's it. And second, we have age. So again, I have age where. So you can see here, I defined these two variable and I'm using here. Okay, this is the syntax of defining variable. Keyword will be where, variable name, and then value. I hope everyone clear till this point. Next, we will go for function. So function, we have keyword fun, then function name, let's say test fun. Okay, now you need to define input parameter. Okay, so if your function need input parameter, then you need to define input parameter. If your function don't need any input, then don't give any input parameter. Okay, for now I am going to define one function without input parameter. Then syntax will be equals to, and what your function will do. So my function will create one JSON payload, okay, which contains address, and address has again two child elements, city and country. Okay, now I have defined this function. This function contain one JSON object which contain address, and address has two child elements, city and country. So how I will use this particular function? So here we have address, and then I want to use this function, so I need to call this function test1. So you can see here this test function, I am calling this function here, okay, and this function I have defined here. So what this function is doing, it's generating this JSON payload, and you can see here inside address we are getting same JSON payload. Okay, now as I mentioned at the starting, we can pass some input payload also. Okay, so for example, I am passing some input payload like obj. Okay, let's say obj only. Okay, now here if you will not pass that particular input parameter, it will give error. So what I will do, I am passing this input here. Okay, so inside this function I am passing this particular object here. Okay, now this obj will contain this particular JSON payload. So what I want to do now, this value I don't want to hardcode here. I want to take from input parameter. So what will be syntax? Obj dot city, obj dot country. So whatever city and country you will pass here, this particular value will be passed to this obj input parameter. Now we are extracting value from here. If you will change here value, like for example I am changing from Kolkata to Delhi, you can see here in output it's creating Delhi. Okay, so in this way you can pass input parameter to your function, and whatever you will pass, you can use that input parameter here. So it depends on like many scenario, business scenario. Sometime you need to pass input parameter, sometime you don't need to pass input parameter. So that based on that you need to write your function. I hope everyone clear with this function. And then namespace. So coming to this point, okay, before going to this namespace I will take when I will convert one JSON payload into XML payload. Okay, at that time I will cover this particular namespace one. Okay, that one you will able to understand in clear way. Okay, for now I am giving now 5-minute time. Till this point whatever we covered, I don't want anything from outside, since Dataview is very big, that is like you can say big ocean. I don't want question from everywhere. Whatever we covered till this point, if anyone has any query till this point, yeah, you can ask. So yeah, Abhishek, you can also unmute yourself and we can like spend 5 minutes to answer all of their query. Yes. Yes. No, we don't. Yeah, no, we don't need. Okay, yeah, that what you are saying, yes, definitely that is possible, but for that we have to like write like our in Mulesoft we have to write, and whatever input you are passing, that input will come in either in query parameter or in payload, and then you need to take value here from payload. For example, here you have city or something, you want to take, yeah, not payload dot query parameter, payload dot element name or attributes dot query parameter dot element name. Yes. Okay, no. Yeah, and And on right hand side, whatever like participants option you can see, you can close that participants option, so it will make your screen a bit bigger.
JSON in line number 2. So that is not mandatory, like it is already JSON, but there is a way like we are showing that we can define it as an input payload as well. Now suppose you are getting a text file or something else and you want to explicitly define the payload, the input payload with some meme type, then we can do it like this. Second is like if you are creating any function as an inline like this what Ravi is showing, then it is like it will be there only in this Dataview. This function cannot be extracted to any other Dataview. But if you want to make a global function or variable, then what you can do is you can define a .dwl file in your resource, and then you can add that in your Dataview as a module. So in that case, you can inherit all the functions of that particular .dwl file in your particular Dataview. So that DWL will become as a global. So that is how you define a global Dataview and add it as a module. Like now we have got some predefined modules, like you say string or you say binary, which Mulesoft provide itself. So when we import it or when we use it as a function, how you do that is import, then we write like import star from this module or import util, something like that. We use the keyword import. The same way we can do for customized importing of modules from Dataview. So we'll come to that in our next sessions. We'll show you like how to import the modules as well.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
I have one question. Can we use a variable and the input payload also like same, both?
Like how you are saying, like variable input?
Like like we will define variable in the header and we want to like concatenate with payload input payload. So can we do that?
Yes, you can do. So you want to concat this with payload dot something like payload dot response data dot type. Yes, this is possible. Okay, maybe this is due to some other region. String and array. Okay, this is coming as a array. Let me take 081. So you can add. So here you can see like we are getting value of type article and we are adding with name var. So Kumar plus article, Kumar article.
Okay.
Okay, fine. So
Ravi, could you please explain function again?
Okay, fine. So here you can see function. Like first we will understand why we use function. So as I mentioned, function like we define whenever we need whenever we need repeated task in our Dataview. So our code will be complex, code length will increase. To remove this kind of problem, we used to write function at the very beginning of our Dataview script inside header. Okay, and you can call this function from multiple places. Okay, now structure of function will be fun keyword, then function name, and then input parameter, and here definition of your function. Okay, now this input parameter you have to pass whenever you are calling this function. So you can see here I am calling this function here and I am passing that input parameter. So what this function, this obj will do, it will hold this particular input parameter what we are passing from here when we are calling function. So now obj hold this particular data. So here what we are doing inside this function, we are creating one JSON payload which contain address as a element, and again address has two child elements, city and country. Okay, so this city will contain obj.city. Okay, so here you can see obj.city. obj.city means this obj contain this particular JSON payload, and city will contain Delhi. So obj.city will contain Delhi. So value of city will be Delhi, and country will be obj.country, that will be India. So this is creating this particular JSON payload which contain address, city, Delhi, and country, India. So here we are mapping that function with this address. Okay, so now address will contain one value which contain address, city, Delhi, and country, India. I hope it's clear to everyone. Okay, fine. So
output.
which you want to remove?
If we remove the output of JSON, can we get the output?
Okay, this one. Okay,
Is
this
that
one
one?
is like completely independent of your function. This will decide what will be output structure of your payload.
Yeah,
Okay, response
actually,
payload.
in the input, we are giving the application/JSON, so it will come automatically as the output, same as the JSON.
No, that is
It won't
not rule.
come.
No, that is not a rule. Okay, so for this, actually, if you will follow Mulesoft documentation, they have given some rule how your output data type will be decided automatically. Okay, there are some rule, it will follow that rule. Okay,
Okay,
if you
okay.
want to force your script to generate JSON payload, then you have to write this output.
Thank you, host.
Okay, fine. So we are done with this. Next. So as I mentioned, like in input directive or input, we have multiple data type like application JSON, application XML, application Java, CSV, Dataweave, text JSON, text XML, text CSV. Like this, we have multiple messaging format which our Dataweave supports. Same way, output also has multiple format which output support. Here I have given was just high level which we use very frequently. A part of that, I think there are many other output type we have which our Dataview supports. Okay, you will get entire list inside Mulesoft documentation. If you want, you can go in Mulesoft documentation. Okay, and here somewhere okay, I will give you particular link like what all like input and output type our Dataview support. You will get all details from there. Now inside body, as I mentioned, like we have to write our Dataview script where we are doing particular mapping, and this will create our output payload. So here we have already seen. So after this 3 hyphen, whatever you will write, that will be your response body. Okay, and here we are doing some mapping, and this mapping will generate this particular result, output result. Okay, so this header will contain generally metadata, and this body will contain your logic to generate output. Okay, so this particular things are like part of theoretical part of this Dataview. Now let me take you some small like hands-on practice on Dataview. So we will do with a small like operation. We will do with we will go with a small operation. I will not go with the in-depth operation first. I will take you through basic operation what we use. Okay, so now let me remove all this, and let me remove all this. Okay, so we have this particular input payload. Here we have this particular input payload. I want to get this entire payload in my output. I don't want to do any mapping, so simple syntax will be payload. So you can see here you are getting this entire payload. Okay, now if you want to, simple thing first, if you want to convert this data type from application JSON to application XML, so what you need to do, you don't need to do entire mapping here. Just go here and change it to application XML. Okay, so here you can see one error. So what is the, why this error you are getting? To understand this error, first you need to understand structure of JSON and XML payload. So let me explain this part, then you will come to know why we are getting this particular error. So here I am writing one JSON payload which contain name, so what you can see here, this is JSON payload. Same JSON payload you can write like this. Both JSON payload denote same thing. In first JSON payload, whatever element you can see name and an age, this element, this particular JSON payload don't have any root element. Means it's not mandatory to define root element inside your JSON payload. Everyone please go on mute. And Mani, can you identify that particular person and remove from meeting? Mani, you need to keep identifying that person and remove from group meeting. Okay, so here okay, what was this? So here we have this particular JSON payload, and same JSON payload I am denoting in this way. So what is difference between these two? Both are valid JSON payload and both denote same thing only. We have JSON object which contain name and age. Here also we have one JSON object which contain name and age. This JSON payload don't has any parent element or parent tag, but this JSON element has parent tag. Okay, so in JSON it's not mandatory to have root element or parent element, but there is difference in XML payload. Okay, so if you think like we can write XML payload like this, for example, we have one is name, this side we don't need, or we need. So here you can see when I am converting this particular JSON payload, I am getting this particular. So this particular name and age must have this root element in case of XML. If I will try to change this one, this should give error, since this particular JSON payload don't have any. Okay, by default it's converting, it's adding one root tag. Okay, so this particular tool they have created in very advanced way, and they are converting this. They are by default they are adding one root tag. If you will not pass any root element, by default this particular platform, what website is there, they know XML payload must have root element, and this JSON object don't have any root element. So what it's doing, by default it's adding one element, root element. Okay, so root element is mandatory for our XML payload. If we will convert this particular JSON payload into XML, it will not convert it, so we need to add root element. So here you can see that particular tool added by default root element, and if we are converting this, then we are getting successfully this. So detail is root element, name and age is child element of detail. But here we are getting error since this particular JSON object don't have root element. So either you can add root element here or you can add root element here. Let's say I'm adding root element here. So you can see this detail will come as a root element of this entire payload. So details is root element, and then we are getting XML payload. So this is the way we can convert our JSON payload into XML. Now at the when we were working with header part, I mentioned I will explain namespace. So here you can see we don't have any namespace anywhere. So first we will see how to define namespace. So syntax will be ns, then namespace name, let's say namespace 1 is name, okay, and then you need to define some URL. Okay, so your namespace should contain some URL. Okay, what I will do, I will take some URL. You can take any URL in namespace. Let's say we are taking this one. It's not mandatory to take any. So you can take anything logical. Generally we take something related to our company. So I'm taking this particular URL. Okay. So this particular namespace I created, and why? Okay. So is it not working for everyone? Like when you are making your screen full screen. So see, for mobile and all, like definitely we will not able to support. Okay, so you have to do proper arrangement. Like if I will make screen very bigger, then it will create problem for me. Like I will not able to see things on proper place. Everyone need to attend this session. Yeah, okay, fine. So I created this particular namespace here. Okay, and here you can see till this point we are not using this namespace here. I want to use this namespace with this details. Okay, so what will be syntax to use this namespace? So you need to write namespace name and then hash keyword. So here you can see what namespace I created, ns1 is added before this details. If you want to use this namespace on multiple places, then you need to, like instead of writing payload, you need to write your proper mapping. Okay, let me do this mapping. I will not do for all element. Let me do for few element. For example, we have response, and then syntax payload dot response data, and then we have include, we have payload dot include. Okay, so I want to add same namespace, or I want to add different namespace. Okay, let's say I want to create another namespace, ns2, and value we can take anything else. Let's say I'm taking this. Okay, this namespace thing you will need whenever you want to create XML payload. Okay, and many places it's very much like required, so you need to understand how to use this. For response and include, I want to use another namespace, so ns2 and then hash. Okay, so now you can see this ns namespace is there with the with details, and another namespace ns2 is there with this response and include. Okay, so in this way you can add namespace, and whenever you will see any XML payload, you will see all like elements will have it, either it's a parent element or child element will have some namespace. And whenever you will call any external system and you are getting, as a response you are getting JSON payload, and you need to call that external system, and that external system must contain that Okay, that external system must contain this name, means whenever you are calling external system, that must contain some input type, not input type, namespace. Then you need to define this namespace. Okay, and yeah, this is very like creating problem, like people are keep adding, so we will find some way from next session. Okay, since it's creating beep sound for everyone, I think definitely it should be irritating. Either people have to join on time or they will not able to join. We have to make this arrangement. Okay, fine. So this one we did like small mapping. Now we will do on field level. So now I'm removing this and I'm going back to again JSON, and we'll see how to do mapping on field level. So whatever payload we have here, so we will do some small transformation on this particular payload, and we'll see behavior of our output payload. Okay, so here we have response data and include. So for response data, let me use response. Okay, whatever key you are defining here, that key you can put inside your double inverted comma or without double inverted comma. It will accept both. Okay, so first response I am taking from payload dot response data, and include I am taking from payload dot include. So you can see here whatever we have inside response data, everything is coming inside response. Same payload we are getting what we have here, and inside include what we have, we are getting everything inside this include. Now what I want to do, my requirement is there, whatever you are getting in type and ID. Okay, so I don't want both type and ID, I want only ID. Just remove. So whatever target system or whatever response payload we want, that response payload should not contain type. So what we need to do here, we need to do mapping here. So what will be mapping? I want only ID, type is not required. Okay, so it will be payload dot, where we have this ID, we have inside response data dot, so we have ID. So in this way you can see we are getting ID, but we are getting array of ID. So what it will do, at this moment it has only one JSON payload, so it's taking one ID in array. But if it will have multiple JSON payload, it will take all the ID one by one. Okay, let me show you that part also. So now you can see we are getting two ID from first payload and from second payload. Okay, so first thing, I don't want to do like some kind of like as per my requirement, I will not get this multiple payload. Even if this array I will get single payload, then how I can get only this value? I don't want this particular array symbol. So what you need to do here, response data, so this particular object is first element of this particular array. Okay, so response data is array and I want to take ID from first element, so put 0 in array. 0 means first element. Now this payload dot response data will contain this JSON object. Previously when we are not using this 0, it was containing this array itself. Now it's taking only object, and inside this object we have ID, so I took that ID value. Next, I want this attribute value, and inside attribute I don't want this title and body. Okay, let's say I want combination of this title and body, or let's say I want attribute, but I want both title and body in one field. So, and my field name will be body title. Let's say target system So here till this point in response we want ID, so I defined ID here. Now inside attribute my requirement is there. Whenever we want to generate this response payload, I don't want title and body as a two element. I want this should be one element, and element name will be body title, like this. Okay, so how to do concatenation? So in Dataview, to concat two value we use plus symbol. So here you can see this plus symbol. So what I will do, first I will take this title value, and first I will take title value and I will take body value and I will concat these two. So how to retrieve this value? So syntax will be payload dot response data, since this attribute title and body is inside response data. Now inside this response data we can have multiple object. I want from first object only 0. So we are inside this response data. Now I want to retrieve attribute. So attribute is child element of response data, similar to type ID, it's a child element. So next will be, so in suggestion also you can see what all child element it has, response data has, you will get all in suggestion, type, ID, attribute. So I want attribute. Okay, and then inside attribute we have title, so title, and I want to concat this with body. So what I will do, I will copy till this point. Okay, so here you can see, yes, okay, okay, yeah. So here you can see, like as I mentioned, we have this particular response data as a array. It can have like one element, child element, like we have one child element at this point, and it can have multiple child element. So my requirement is I want to retrieve value from first child element every time. Okay, later on we will see if we will have multiple child element, and if we want to map for multiple child element, then how we will use map function and all that we will see later on. But here, okay, let me make it simple a bit. Just forgot about this, just make it JSON, don't make it array, to make it simple, like whatever we are discussing. Okay, now this is this one. Okay, this will create problem. I need to check, actually this payload is getting a bit complex, so let it be. So simple thing, like this particular response data contain this JSON object, okay, and it's inside array. So inside array means array can contain single payload, array it can contain multiple payload. Okay, let's see, we have one payload and then we have second payload. So if you see here, if you see value of ID, then ID is coming from here also, 1 also, and this 2 also. Here you can see, if I remove this, so ID is taking value from 1 and 2 both places, from this JSON object also and this JSON object also. If you want to specify, I want value from first JSON object, inside this array we have two JSON object. I want value from first JSON object, then you need to specify from which position of array. If you want to get value from first position of array, then you have to define 0. So if you see here, now payload.response data 0 will contain this particular payload. Okay, and inside this payload, what is the value of ID is 1. If I want from this particular payload, then what will be syntax? Payload.response data, and then instead of 0, this is second payload. So second payload, how we will denote? By 1. In array, indexing start from 0. So first payload will be index 0, Actually this is index of our payload. Second payload will have index 1. Okay, now when I am taking index 1 means it's considering this second payload. Now this second payload has this id value, and what is the value of id key, and what is the value of id 2. So this time you can see we are getting 2. So this is the importance of using this index value. It will tell you whatever array you have taken, that array has multiple repeating element, which repeating element you want to retrieve. Okay, so either 0 means first index, 1 means second index, like this it will keep increasing. Okay, hope everyone clear till this point. Now let me do some more mapping here. So we got this attribute mapping. Now we have this relationship mapping here. Let's say, okay, I'm not going for relationship mapping. Let me think some another business scenario here. Let's go to include one. In include one, whatever name is coming, okay, let me add mobile number also. Okay, so inside include we have few fields mapping. So inside include I want to define name. Okay, I don't want to define everything, I want to define only name and mobile number. Okay, so first I want to define name. I'm making it bigger again. Just let me check one thing. Okay. So here include has JSON object. Include is JSON object which contain name and mobile number. These fields it contain. So for name, I want this name, but I want to add some prefix, Mr. or Mrs. like this. Okay, so how I will add prefix? So whatever prefix I want to add, that is hard-coded value, Mr. or Mrs. Okay, so for that what I will do, I will directly write string here. So in Dataview you can write any string value directly using this double inverted comma, and then I want to add this string value Mr. or Mrs. with this name. Okay, so then syntax will be plus plus, and I want this value. So this value is inside. So this entire thing is payload. Inside payload we have response data and we have include. So I will take first payload, then dot. I have response data and include. I want include dot. Inside include we have this many of element type, ID, detail. Okay, these three are child element, type, ID and detail. So where is my name? Name is inside details. So I will take details. Okay, and inside this we have detail, name. So I will take name. What error it's giving? Unable to call plus plus with argument Mr. plus array. Okay, I replaced. Okay, sometime it takes time to I missed comma. Yes, correct. Sorry. Plus with argument Mr. array John. Oh, it's coming as a array. Let me quickly check. It's JSON only now. Yeah, output I got, but yeah, sometime it takes time to load. Okay, so just ignore this error. What it? Which comma? I think we have all the comma now. Oh, sorry, anything you are saying? Okay, fine. So why it was giving warning? It was not error, it was warning, since it was assuming this particular value may contain some null value. Okay, So if it will be null value, then this plus plus operation will not work. It will give you Mule expression error. Okay, so that's why when I haven't added default value, it was assuming like there can be possibility it can contain null value. Since this is like a string value, like we have string value, sometime it may happen this particular field will not come in request, so it may contain some null value, and this plus plus operation or concat operation like doesn't work on this null value. So that's why it was giving warning. So if you want to remove that warning, then you have to define some default value, and to define default value, this will be syntax. Okay, now in between you can see there is no space. I want to add space also. So what I will do, now you can see we are getting name and there is space between Mr. John. Okay, here I want to add second field, that is my mobile number. So for mobile number I have condition like here I am not getting, or let's say we have mobile and country code. Okay, so my requirement is like whatever payload I am generating, that payload should contain mobile number plus country code. Okay, it should not contain both country code separately and mobile number is separately. So how we will concat these two? Okay, you can see this one is as a string and this one is integer. So what you need to do, so first take this value payload dot include dot details dot country code plus plus. Okay, so by default this plus plus operation will convert this particular value as a string. Okay, you don't need to do anything. In worst case, if it will not able to do, then we can do typecasting. Okay, that also I will show you. Payload dot include dot details okay, so we use this again concat operation. So what we are doing here, we are concatenating this country code with mobile number. Okay, and by default if you can see here, this is integer value. So this plus plus operation by default it will typecast this particular integer value into string value, and as a final result you will get string value. If you want to put again space, so you can add one space here. Okay, and here again I think it's giving some warning. Okay, so if you want you can add default value here. Or it's warning for integer plus string. I think that. Let me minimize first what warning it's giving. Okay, yeah, so it's saying auto parsing type from integer to string. Okay, so they are converting this type from integer to string. Okay, in this way, like we have seen basic mapping, how to do mapping in our Dataview. Okay, now we will see a few more complex mapping step by step. Okay, till this point we have used this concat operation only. Now we will slowly go with some complex not complex one, like we will go with some other functionality what we have. Okay, I think we already completed 2 hours. So for today we can stop our session here only, and we can give so I'm giving you 10 minutes. Okay, so next 10 minutes we will go with doubt session. Whatever we covered in today's session, you can ask doubt related to that, and from tomorrow we will cover like more functionality, and slowly we will cover entire Dataview. Okay, so now yeah, everyone can unmute yourself, and whatever doubts, yeah, but step ask one by one. Okay. Okay, so that we have one syntax, let me show you. So as you ask, like how to convert this integer to string, so here you need to use
here it is normally it is taking
As-
numeric to string, right?
yes,
Automatically. But what is the other way? You said like there is another way, right?
so you need to use this syntax as, okay, and then you need to define data type. Okay, syntax will be as, then
Okay,
data
as
type.
string. Okay.
So what it will do, it will convert that
It will
particular
convert
string.
numeric to string.
Yes, same way you can convert string to integer, like this you can do conversion.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Thank you,
Ravi, can you show that syntax as well? Converting it to an integer, the mobile in the
sorry,
output.
your voice is not clear.
Ravi, this side Narendra. For example, while accessing mobile, for example, you write like payload.include.details, country code default. For example, if so many array of objects there is the another way is there to accessing mobile. For example, this path is so like big one.
Okay, you want to make this path smaller, yeah, definitely you can do. For
Yes.
example, you can see like include is there. Okay, this is like every time we have to retrieve till details. So what you can do, instead of this, you can create one variable.
Okay. Because in real time, so many
Yeah,
payload is
definitely,
there,
yes,
so much
definitely we follow this pattern, and thanks for asking this question. So definitely this will
Yeah.
help many people. So here,
Yes. Sorry, what was the question? Like I was dropped off. Ravi, what was the question?
okay, so he asked like okay, sorry, like here we are defining entire path. Okay, instead of defining entire path everywhere, what is shortest way we will have. So yes, so you can create one variable with that path, and then you can use that variable, and then what field do you want to use. So this is definitely like I will say very good question.
Ravi, also like if you can show the difference between variable and function. Few people were asking the difference, like
Okay.
You can you create a small function over here and you can show the difference between both. And Sandeep, you have raised your hand. So is your query done?
Not yet.
Okay, so let me define variable and function again. So first, for variable, okay, your variable name will, sorry, syntax will be there, that is keyword. So where keyword will be there, then variable name will be there, and what value you want to assign to that variable. Let's say I want to detail, or maybe I want to create one variable name, something like Kumar or developer. Okay, so this is my variable. Okay, I want to use this variable here in name. So I am using this particular variable here. Now, so variable part, I think it's very simple. So I hope everyone understood. Now maybe you are facing problem with function. Okay, now let me create some complex function. Okay, let me do it some complex function, then I think you will get more clarity. So syntax will be fun, and then age, let me, everyone go on mute. everyone please go on mute.
Naga, I guess it's you. Can you go on mute, please?
Okay, so here we have mobile number, or let's say country code. So what I want to do, I want to define one function based on country code. It will give country name. Okay, so whenever I will call this country name function, okay, so this country name function will give us country name based on country code. Okay, so what I will do here, I will pass country code as a input parameter. Okay, and in response it will give country name. Okay, sorry. So whenever we will call this function, we have to pass one country code, and this function will take that country code and it will return country name. Okay, so here we need to write some logic. If country code equals to plus 91, then it will return India. Else if country code equals to +1 US, else other. Okay, so what I did, I defined one function which will take country code, and it will check this country code contains +91, or this country code contains +1, or it contains something else. If it will contain +91, then it will return India. If it will contain +1, then it will return US, and if it will contain anything else, then it will return other. So here directly I can pass value like +91. So here you can see this value of this particular function giving us India. Since we are passing this +91, this +91 will come inside this country code. Then we are writing some logic here. This country code equals to +91, yes. So what will be value? It will return country name India. So we are getting country name India. Okay. I don't want that tag again, so I just want this logic, and it will return value India. Okay. Now inside variable you can see you can't pass input parameter. Whatever fixed value you want to define here, you can define only those things. Syntax will be, if you will say like syntax will be almost same. Here also you can write logic, but you can't pass input parameter. What you can pass inside function. Inside this variable you can't pass input parameter. If I will change this value from +91 to 1, this value will change to US. But whatever variable you are defining, your variable value will not change. Since you can't pass input parameter, so here when you are calling this variable, you can't pass any input parameter. So whatever value you will define, it will be created once at a time. It will not keep changing. But this function will keep changing based on your input parameter. And if I pass something else, then it will give you other. Okay, hope everyone clear with this, what is variable and what is function. Okay.
Yeah, now you can unmute and you can ask. So most of people are asking about namespace, like why you use namespace in XML, like what's the use of that?
Okay, so for that, let me take one XML payload.
Meanwhile, Naveen has asked a question like, if we can assign a variable inside a function. If I'm not wrong, yes, we can define a variable inside function, Ravi, correct? In a variable inside a function, we can also define a variable using the var keyword.
Okay.
We can do that. Yeah, I have done that. We can do that, but I don't think there will be any use, any better use of that if we even do that. What it's saying, invalid input. Just remove that. Like, yeah.
Ravi, you need to declare inside the do.
Okay, there might be some way, but I'm not sure. Yeah,
even I haven't used, so yeah. If someone you can pin that syntax in chat.
You can put one flower braces, and again you need to put the 3 dash.
Okay, using the do keyword you are saying.
Yeah, local variable.
Yeah. Okay.
You can pass syntax in chat. Okay, that will be helpful.
Yeah. Maybe in next class we'll see. Like I have done that, but I don't remember the syntax as of. But we can do that. So if anyone can pass the syntax in chat, maybe.
Okay, so we have here payload dot details. Unexpected character.
Root element is there.
The slash is missing at the root, the end of the root.
Yes.
There is parent root. There is parent element root.
A parent element root. Root is closing here. Then details. Detail is closing here. And let
payload dot root dot details. It will be
payload dot roots.
Payload dot roots dot details. For root will come.
Okay. So.
No, you need to give a root, yeah.
Okay, so here you can see like we have one detail. Okay, I want here like let's say instead of this, I want age details dot age. So here you can see inside parent tag I am getting this age. Now in future this has two details. Okay, So I want to point like or maybe like we are including two here, like it's inside one root element, so you can easily like do like details 0 and details 1. But in future what we are doing, we are combining two XML payload in one place. Okay, so it will be difficult to identify which detail I am denoting. So now here when I am writing this detail, it will take from first one wherever it will occur. But what I am doing now, next ns1, and this one will be ns2, details, okay, undeclared namespace. Okay.
Ravi, I have pinged you the example for local variables and function.
Okay. Here it's not taking namespace. Okay.
So what's your full name? Anand. You mentioned Anand.
Sorry, my name is Nagesh.
Okay, Nagesh. Yeah. Thanks for that, man. Okay, just one point, like I have written in chat, I also want to mention, like the playground is like not every time whatever we write in playground will work in studio. Like I faced that. So it is 95% accurate, like what you write it over here, the same will work in your studio. But it is more like for good for a practice, like you don't want to open your studio and directly you can practice over here. Okay, so most of the code may work, what you write in your studio and what you write in playground would be similar, but there might be like sometimes it may happen, because it happened with me when I created something on like playground, and that need little bit changes in studio, or what I have created in studio, the same code sometimes doesn't work in playground. Okay, maybe due to inputs or something. So it's not like 100% same as what we write over here and over there.
Yeah, that's Abhishek. And means in the studio, whatever that comes in the means input or request. So based on that one, we have to write the code. So those are not working in the playground, right?
Yeah, like sometimes it doesn't, like if you are defining any variables or something. Yeah, if you're defining a lot of variables and things, so that type of things may not work over here, or a complex Dataview script maybe, because I faced that. That's why I just like, thanks to Bharati and one more who has asked this question, Satish.
Yeah.
For asking this question. Yeah.
So,
but it is good for practice purpose, and it works only for Dataview version 2.0. It will not work for 1.0. At least this particular version what we are showing.
Means Dataview playground only supported 2.0, not 1.0.
Yeah, not 1.0.
Okay, actually I'm not getting proper payload. So let's for namespace one, I will explain in detail in next session. So I need to create proper payload to explain that part. Okay, so
just to Ravi, one quick one, Ravi. You're adding to namespace. The URL we are using in the namespace, right? I suppose it serves a purpose. So
Yeah, definitely.
on what basis do we select this URL? If you could add that one as well in the coming session when you are going to explain namespace, that would be helpful, right?
Yeah. So namespace simply you can understand like to avoid any namespace like conflict. For example, your XML payload contain two fields having same name. Okay, for example, detail, two details are there. Now when you will point payload.detail, it will always point first detail. Okay, you want to specify like no, I want to like I want to use second detail. So you have to give namespace to both the details. One detail will have namespace 1, another detail will have namespace 2. When you will access that particular second name details, so you will specify that namespace also, ns2. So automatically it will take value from second details instead of taking from first detail. Okay, so whenever you will have repeated element and you want to take value from particular specific element, then you can use this namespace to avoid any kind of conflicts.
Yeah, so mainly if in simple word I will say like it's like an identifier. Okay, it identifies and remove any conflict if there is any conflict.
Yes.
So that is one purpose of namespace. Thanks.
For example,
and Suresh, you have,
for example,
using like yes.
For example, two homes are there. Both home looks like very similar, but we have home number 11A, 11B. So if you are using 11B means you are pointing that another home. Although both are look like very similar, but home number is there, house number is there, that identify okay you are pointing that another home number 11B instead of 11A. Okay, same way namespace work in XML. There can be multiple scenario where this field name will be same. So how to identify you are pointing to which field? So you can add some namespace and based on that namespace it will be decided. But I will take one practical example in next session. Okay.
Ravi, I pinged you on XML. Just check if that works. It's in the chat.
Actually, I want XML payload with proper namespace and all.
Yeah, it's there, I think.
But it's very bigger actually. I want bigger payload I also even got, but to explain and to see and to correlate things will be very difficult. So let it be for tomorrow's session. I will explain in detail. I will come up with one easy to understand payload and then we will go. Yeah, okay, fine then. So
Suresh or someone has like one question.
You were telling about how to remove the big path using the wires.
Yes. That we already covered. I already given one example. So we created like one variable with a certain path, like what path is repeating, and then we are using that variable on multiple places. Okay, if you will go with the recording of this video, you will come to know. I think I already covered, and yeah, we already covered. You go through recording and you will come to know.
Yeah, and if you have like like you can also have some suggestion like what all you needs maybe in tomorrow's session. So we will first 5 minutes like you can note it down today and tomorrow you can share with us what all things you required, so that we'll keep in our mind for all the later session what we have. And anyhow we are sharing this recording on YouTube.
And for today's session, oh sorry, Abhishek, sorry. Yeah. For today's session,
sorry for
okay, go ahead.
Okay, you go ahead. Okay,
for today's session, if anyone will get any doubts you want to solve it immediate basis, so you can ask in Telegram group. We will keep monitoring and we will keep answering.
Yeah, you can put on Telegram group, or once we provide the video on the YouTube in the comments, you can put the questions, or you can suggest us over there also. So again, I'm sharing the link for our YouTube channel. You can just go, you can check the videos, you can subscribe. And sorry for all the inconvenience like regarding people's are adding and muting, unmuting. So little bit technical things we had, but from the next session we'll make more concern on that one so that no one get disturbed in between.
Yeah, and everyone try to join this.
Sorry.
Means in coming session, we use the same link or any
yeah, we will
different
use
link
same
is-
link. Everyone accept that meeting invite. Then you like whatever pop-up we are seeing when someone is joining, that pop-up is coming, that pop-up will not come once you will accept that meeting invite. And for everyone, it's a humble request, like try to join session on time, so it will not create any kind of
Exactly.
disturbance for other.
Yeah, hi Ravi, Surbi here.
Yes.
Can you please go on browser and on a playground? This is a left side. We can see this is a XML file, right? So in coming session, can you please explain like what is this XMLNS, XSD, when we need to use it? These things I want to understand from
XML
XML
payload. So
point of view.
yeah, okay. So in simple, like you want to understand structure of XML payload.
Yeah, like when we required XML, NS, this thing I'm very much confused on this.
Okay, fine. Yeah,
for a JSON, I am comfortable, but for XML, I am
actually,
confused.
nowadays, like we are not working on SOAP services. Mostly, we are working on REST services, and JSON is very much popular. It's easy to understand. That's why we are not getting this XML payload in use very frequently. But yeah, I will explain.
Yeah.
So
only for explanation purpose, because of what now sometime user story come to us, and in that we are facing like we need a XML conversion. So that time I have seen this activity, so I'm little bit confused many time, like why we have used this or that. Anyhow, majorly we are doing JSON to JSON conversion, but need to understand, focus on this part as well.
Yeah, sure. I will cover.
Okay. Thank you.
Ravi, can you share all the social media links over here?
Okay.
People are asking for joining them in our Telegram group.
Okay, yeah, better for query you can join, and we will like whatever query you will have, you can keep asking there. We will try to answer. Let me send you a link quickly.
So guys, you can use this links what Ravi is sharing to get added in the Telegram group. Had a great time with you all guys, like lovely audience, good questions, and thanks to all of you like who supported in answering the question. It's really helpful. Thank you, sir, guys. So Ravi has shared the WhatsApp group.